It's time for the Charlotte FC podcast. Welcome in, everybody, to the Charlotte FC podcast. It's the New England match. The Crown are looking at 8 in a row unbeaten, 7 wins in a row, which is tied for second in Major League record. And we have Kacey White today talking to us about the Revolution game. She's up there at Patriot Place right by the Gillette Stadium. Welcome, Kacey.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Appreciate you having me on.
Sure. So just a little bit about Kacey. She's a UNC grad, played there. The U.S. women's national team. She's also been a coach and broadcaster. I guess one of the things I think is unusual about your situation is not only that you played in college and at the highest level with the women's national team, but you also coached at a high level. And now you're a broadcaster. So you bring in all of these different perspectives. As a broadcaster and as an announcer, what hat do you put on when you watch a game? Because I can imagine, there's so many things thinking, oh, do I look at this from a player perspective? Do I look at it from a coach, like a bigger thing? Do I look at it as a broadcaster or a fan? How do you approach a game?
Well, my hope is that I can blend all of those experiences from playing to coaching to broadcasting into a single broadcast. But that can be incredibly hard. I think if you ask anyone that knows me very well or has heard me from a broadcasting perspective, know that I have very much a coach perspective on the way that I look at things and the tactics of everything. Of course, I played at the highest level as well, so I think I can put myself in those shoes to a degree, but that was a lot longer ago. I've coached more recently at a high level, and so I think for me, I try to put myself into the tactics, into the coach's shoes, and what perhaps they're trying to get out of certain games and things along those lines. So hopefully I'm bringing a bit of everything, but that's the way I usually lean.
Awesome. So speaking of this match and coaches, I'm sure you had the opportunity to watch some of the teams play and talk to the coaches. Charlotte, as I mentioned, on this roll, 15-11-2 on the year, 4th in the East, 4-9-1 away. What did you hear from Dean that you can kind of key in on how they're going to approach this match?
I think one of the biggest things is the consistency piece, something that they have been extremely happy with. I think something as viewers, broadcasters, fans, we've all seen is that there's this consistency of play in the way Charlotte is in their current run of form. And when you find that, it just really gives you a strong sense of identity of that you can perform no matter the opposition, no matter the tactical approach you might have to take to the game. And that just breeds confidence. And so that was one of the biggest messages I think that we received this week.
And then on the other side, what do you think about New England?
New England's in a very interesting situation because this is where mentality comes into play. I just talked about how I love the tactics and how you're going to approach games and maybe the little nuances of adaptability. But at some point in the season with certain teams, whether you're going to try to win the Eastern Conference or whether you're trying to get into the playoff line, whatever it may be, when your backs are up against a wall, the mentality piece has to come first. Yes, you need a tactical backbone and a structure to be able to approach games. The game is at too high of a level to only worry about the emotions. But emotions do play a factor. And so New England being at home, backs against the wall, I think is going to be a really interesting challenge for Charlotte on how they come in to Gillette Stadium and are able to approach this game.
Do you think a lot of it is going to be about that kind of energy? A lot of times in road matches, it's very hard for the opposing team to have that energy and knowing kind of the momentum. And you kind of said the mindset that's going on with both teams. What would we see to notice hey, wow, things are really clicking right away for Charlotte, or, oh, it's going to be a long day?
Even though I think that emotion and energy will play a role, I don't think it's this raw energy necessarily. Emotion and focus can also be a part of that. And I think for New England, showing a little bit of restraint, they've defended quite a bit and used some counter-attacking transitions to have some success, especially against Columbus. They've done that in the past this year for Charlotte as well, with pretty much one opportunity, one goal. So I think for Charlotte, it's going to be really important that if they establish the majority of possession, which I could see very much happening, that they take their chances early. I think that is the lesson in that, is that when you play a team that knows they need to keep games close and then go strategically for wins in order to get those 3 points, that means if you have the majority of possession, it has to be sharp, it has to be focused, and you have to put your chances away. And I think that'll be the challenge here tonight.
As in some respects, I feel like Charlotte plays a little bit that way too. It's like it's like, who wants to really have the ball today?
Well, that's what's really interesting. I think you hit it on the head, Nick, because what happens is, I think that Charlotte can possess, of course. We know they have the ability to do that, but they also showed that they can share possession, which they did against Red Bulls a little bit in the first half. Then they got the lead. Then they were able to sit and defend a little bit more. And there were different reasons for that, different personnel, that you get a goal. And so you're able to sit back and able to absorb pressure. And it shows you can do that as well and counterattack efficiently. So that's what I think is really interesting and unique about tonight's matchup. It's almost which game plan is going to win out. And if they both have the same game plan, how is that going to look? And so I'm just very interested to see what that ends up showing on the field tonight. But I do expect Charlotte to have more of the possession, at least early on.
Yeah. Now, Charlotte has never won at Gillette Stadium. They're 0-3 there, but they also have this streak on the other side. So what's going to give here? And like, do those things play in your head as a coach and a player? Do you even mention it? Do you talk about it? Or are you just like, hey, business as usual, do our thing?
I think every coach has a different philosophy on when they bring in some of those types of factors, those types of elements. When you're a team that is on a 7-game win streak, I don't even think you worry about it. Charlotte has the ability, and Dean Smith has the ability to say, here's what's working for us. Here's some different things you might see today, some different challenges. Here's a few reminders. Let's go show who we are. So when you have that going, you don't really, I believe, have to dip into those types of things too often. When maybe things aren't going as well, then you start to go, okay, how can I get some motivation to the players? But the players right now have to be feeling great for Charlotte with the recent form, and coupling that with not just form and how you're playing, but also being able to get results. When you have both of those going, it's a really nice feeling as a player and a staff.
Yeah, Charlotte has had a run of many multiple goal games, but of late it's been these close, kind of gritty games where they've struggled to score, but the opponent really hasn't had the opportunities. Are you seeing it more like that type of match, or are you saying like maybe if Charlotte gets a goal or something early, it could be a wholly different type of atmosphere and game?
I think it'll be interesting. I think New England's going to try to keep Charlotte off the board as long as possible. I do think that is going to be the approach, especially not that they won't try to go forward or things like that, but what you don't want to do is leave yourself super exposed against a talented Charlotte team that can score goals, and especially in space, in counterattacking moments. They've shown that they can do that. They did it just recently in a great pressing moment that ended up in Vargas scoring. And so I think if you're New England, you're just trying to keep it really close in that way, not because you can't possess, but because of the form that Charlotte is in. So I think that will be what we're really looking at and what we're potentially seeing. But you never know. Sometimes coaches put a little bit different out, and they talk about this is what's been going well for us, and then they try something completely different. And that's what's so great about this game, is that there's so many little nuances and some flexibility of movement, and then it's a player's game at the end of the day. So players are going to make the difference. Goals make a difference. So that will change the outlook if a goal does come.
Yeah, and New England is just far enough away, but just close enough away that this could be a make or break game also for them.
It's a huge game for New England. I don't think that can be stated enough, that they have to do whatever it takes to get a result. It does not matter if it's ugly. It doesn't matter if it's boring. It doesn't matter if it's exciting. 3 points is what they're going for. And so that is going to be definitely a factor. And I think that's something you mentioned earlier about what does the coaching staff, what does Dean Smith say to his players? Does he mention streaks? Does he mention all these things? I think what he can mention is that, guys, this could be a trap game. We're in great form. Like, we may not go. We probably won't go the rest of the season without conceding some points here and there. That would be unbelievable, I'm sure, for Charlotte fans and for the team, but not likely with the parity in the league and just the nature of this game. So it's a little bit of a trap game in that regards of sometimes something has to give. And then you're up against a team that has those emotional triggers as well of, okay, we have to win, we have to go for it. And so it can be really difficult. So if anything is going to be addressed, I think just making sure the players know that and recognize that.
Yeah. Can you talk about the goalie matchup? Because we have Kristijan Kahlina kind of coming to his form that he's had in the season past where he's goalkeeper of the year. Matt Turner coming over and being part of this New England Revolution team again. How's that shaping out? Is there a goalkeeper kind of matchup, or is it more of, those guys are going to make their moments when they happen?
Goalkeepers and goal scorers change teams, they change games. That's just the reality of it. And that's coming from a central midfielder, so I hate to say that because we're kind of pulling the strings there in midfield. But the reality is when you have goalkeepers that are in good form, they can absolutely give you lifelines, keep you in games, make the consistent saves, make the 1 or 2 big saves you need. And so that will be really important for New England. Bringing in Matt Turner, that was a definite catalyst to these last few games. Just his leadership back there, his intensity, the way he approaches games, and his ability to make saves. So the efficiency piece for Charlotte in their finishing, it's going to take a lot to beat Matt Turner. And we know that. He's a good goalkeeper. And so that's what I mean about really taking your chances, picking your corners, picking your finishing moments, and making sure that he's under pressure.
Now, this probably goes to without being said, but I guess the person that Charlotte should be most afraid of is Carlos Gil, right?
Yeah, you might be right on that one, Nick.
I guess I feel like sometimes he's really involved in the game, and then sometimes he just sits back, and then he makes something happen like he did in the first match in April. It's like, oh, well, of course he scored, right? What have you seen that has shown you that maybe he is in a better form than he was earlier this year?
I'll be honest with you, I don't know if there's much change in form because of the nature of the way that Carlos Gil plays. He is fluid, he's elusive, he kind of floats in and out of spaces. You'll see him sometimes drop alongside the center backs just to get involved in the game and get the ball on his own center back. So he's that deep sometimes. But then he's on the front line as well, next to Campana. He can be on the sides of the holding mids. He understands the game, he understands spaces, and he drifts into spaces that defenders don't want to be pulled into because it pulls them out of their structure. And that's what I really like about him. It's this bit of like playing like the accordion a little bit. It just consistently changes and moves. And I like that about his game. And that's what makes it hard to play against. We know he can score goals. He has a wonderful delivery. He can play the role of provider as well. But I actually like just the elusiveness with the way he plays and how that manipulates other teams.
Now, who on Charlotte's side do you think could be the difference maker?
I think the wide spaces are going to be really important. So for Vargas and Zaha in the wide spaces will be that manipulation, that 1v1 ability, really important, especially when I'm talking about efficiency in the final third. I think they will have opportunities to be isolated potentially, and what they can do in those moments, whether it's a slip ball, whether it's, okay, it's not on right now, we're going to recirculate play. I think the decision making there could be a real catalyst for what Charlotte can do from a tactical perspective.
Now, you said in the wide spaces, does that also mean just changing the attack from one side to another to catch New England off guard? Or is it more of just playing wide and coming back?
It certainly can. And which spaces you occupy. Do you play inverted? Do you play all the way on the touchline? How are you higher? Are you lower? And all of that is how you try to manipulate back lines. And it's no surprise that those two players can score goals, that they can be great in the 1v1. And so you have to find ways to manipulate that. And it's not just their movement, it's the movement of other players around them, and Toplamati and Bronico and the outside back, being part of that as well. So now you're getting me into my coaching brain. Sorry, I'm going everywhere. But this question, I'm definitely coach oriented. So it's not just as simple always as just putting your head down and going 1v1. It's how do you have those little margins to move players that allow you to create better chances?
Yeah. What about if you were playing for Dean Smith's team, you were midfielder, where would you fit? Would you like playing that middle block? Would you like playing, the Ashley Westwood 6 role? Would you rather be the Brant Bronico role, or almost like the Pep Beal role where you're actually a 10?
Oh, definitely not the 6 role. Credit to Westwood. Yeah, that's not my role. I always loved players that played the 6 really well because it allowed me to do what I was better at, which was being higher up the field. So I between two positions pretty much my entire career, which was either attacking center mid, more of that 10 role, or it was on the wing. And so I could see myself in a little bit of both. I love to press and defend high up the field. So I got a little Bronico in me in that way, but I loved to be on the ball and distribute. So later in my career, I was pushed more out on the wing at times with the women's national team and continuing to develop the 1v1 ability. So I think in the modern game, I would probably also pick that, because now wingers are asked to be inverted like a 10 at times. And that would have been the perfect role for me. I did more, back 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, it was get in line, go 1v1 and cross. That was not as much of my personality. It was more making. So invert me as a winger and I'd probably be happy in his system.
Probably had a few more goals too, right?
Exactly. Not just assisting. That would get me in some more goal scoring opportunities for sure.
Right. And of course, you're doing this match with Jessica Charman, who was the color analyst for Charlotte's Radio for past 3 seasons. And now she's taking on different stuff. Tell us about your relationship with her and what you do to prepare.
We've done a couple matches together, actually. It's been a lot of fun. Jessica's wonderful, and I love working with her. One, she has an incredible passion for the game, and you can just see that in everything that she does. She also gets football, and she understands it, and it's so nice to kind of just have those back and forths with someone that you work with. And then we don't talk about it enough. You want to enjoy who you work with, and I really enjoy Jess. We have a really good time together, and it's just fun working with her. So, and you can just tell by the community she's been in, like Charlotte, how liked she is in those communities. And I can see why, but I do think she brings out a lot of good qualities in me on the air, and I hope to do the same for her.
Yeah. Is there anything, because I mean, when you were first working with someone, you kind of have to know their tendencies, and like when, especially as an analyst, when you get to come in, kind of say your thing. Is there a conversation about it, or is there, I guess, kind of how is that framed? Because it seems like, it's natural, but then it may not be.
Well, at the end of the day, the way I look at it is we're a team, and not just Jess and I, but our producers, our directors, our audio, everyone involved. And if we're all better and we all work together, it's just a better team performance. And that's the way I look at it with Jess, is you do talk about those things. And sometimes it's not going to be perfect because it's live TV at the end of the day. So you're going to have to adapt. You're going to have to be natural. You're going to have to pivot and swerve and do different things. And I think she's really good at that and controlling a broadcast and how it goes. But yes, those things are talked about, because ultimately at the end of the day, I want to be a great team player and I want Jessica to feel at her best. And so speaking about those things is really important. And I know she feels the same way because we've spoken through those types of things that we do on the air.
Yeah. Now, do you all kind of have the same mindset as far as like strategies and things, as far as how you see the game, or is it kind of different?
I think that there's some push and pull, and that's what's exciting about soccer in general, is we could be watching the exact same thing and pick up on different things. One, it's not necessarily right or wrong. It's what do I notice versus what she notices or someone else that I'm working with. And so I think that makes for good television sometimes, is when you notice something and someone might disagree, or, oh, okay, well, I didn't think about it that way, but here's what I'm seeing. And that's what I love about the game. That's why I could probably sit and talk all day about tactics, because there's so many different things that are going on within a soccer game, and it's so fluid. It's not stop and start. And so there's a lot of different things to be picked at and analyzed. Awesome.
Well, Kacey and Jessica will be on the call tonight, MLS Season Pass, for the New England Revolution Charlotte match at 7:30 Eastern. Go ahead and listen and watch them and enjoy the match. Thanks, Kacey.
Thank you so much.
Again, thanks for listening to another episode of the Charlotte FC podcast, where we bring you the fascinating people who work for and around Charlotte FC and the world of football. The Charlotte FC podcast is edited and produced by me, Nick Finelli, and Eli Finelli. Please help us out and share this episode with others. 5 stars. And follow CLTFC Podcast on Instagram, X, and YouTube. Until next time, enjoy the day.